Sometime in the next 24 hours, a woman somewhere in the world will go into labor. She will be rushed to a hospital. A team of trained doctors will be there. Machines will monitor her heartbeat and the baby's. Pain medication will be offered. Sterile tools, bright lights, a call button within reach. And the entire time, she will not think twice about any of it. But for 99% of human history, none of that existed. No hospitals, no doctors, no anesthesia, no way to know if the baby was positioned correctly. No way to stop a haemorrhage. No way to know, in the hours it could take, whether both of them would survive. Childbirth was the single most dangerous event in the life of an ancient human woman. And yet here you are. Every ancestor you have, going back 300,000 years, made it through that moment. Someone helped them. Someone knew what to do. And the story of how they did it changes everything we think we know about medicine, community, and what it means to be human. Let's start with a question that sounds simple. Why is human childbirth so much harder than childbirth in almost every other species? A giraffe gives birth standing up. The calf drops 6 feet to the ground and walks within an hour. A chimpanzee, our closest living relative, typically gives birth alone, at night, in a tree, quietly, without help. But a human infant cannot do any of that. It cannot walk. It cannot feed itself. It cannot even hold its own head up. For months, it is almost entirely helpless. And the birth itself, the passage out of the womb, is one of the most physically complex events in the entire animal kingdom. Here is why. Roughly 2 million years ago, our ancestors began walking upright on 2 legs. This was an extraordinary advantage. It freed the hands. It saved energy over long distances. It allowed our ancestors to carry food and tools across the open savanna. But walking upright reshaped the pelvis. It narrowed it. It changed the angle of the birth canal. It made the opening through which a baby must pass dramatically smaller relative to the size of the baby's head. At the same time, and this is the cruel irony, our brains were getting larger. Brain size roughly tripled over the last 2 million years. Bigger brains, narrower hips, the same birth canal. Anthropologists call this the obstetric dilemma. The baby's head is so large relative to the pelvis that it must rotate as it moves through the birth canal. A complex, tight, twisting maneuver that no other primate has to perform. And because of that rotation, the baby emerges facing away from the mother. In almost every other primate, the baby is born facing toward the mother. She can reach down, guide the infant out, clear its airway herself. But a human mother reaching down would be pulling the baby in the wrong direction, against the curve of the spine, risking serious injury. This is the biological reason that humans almost never give birth alone. Not because we are weak, not because we lack instinct, because we literally need someone there, someone facing the right direction, someone who knows what to do. Here is something that almost nobody knows. The oldest evidence of assisted childbirth goes back at least 300,000 years. Not 300 years. Not 3,000 years. 300,000. Anthropologist Wenda Trevathan has argued that birth attendants, someone helping during labor, is not a modern medical invention. It is one of the oldest human behaviors we have. Older than agriculture. Older than written language. Older than any religion we can name. In virtually every human culture ever studied, across every continent, every era, every civilization, women did not give birth alone. Other women were there. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, the closest living window into how our ancestors lived, have found that assisted birth is universal. Not common, not typical, universal. And the person attending the birth was not just a comfort. She was a specialist. She knew which positions helped the baby descend. She knew how to read the length and pattern of contractions. She knew which plants could slow a hemorrhage or ease the pain. She knew what silence from the baby in its first moments meant and what to do about it. This knowledge was not written down. It was passed from woman to woman, mother to daughter, elder to apprentice across tens of thousands of years. The midwife is not a modern invention. She may be the oldest specialist in human history. So where did it actually happen? For most of human prehistory, there were no hospitals, no birth centers, no designated rooms. Birth happened wherever the group was, in camps, in caves, beside rivers, under open sky. Archaeological evidence from ancient settlements suggests that birth often happened in a slightly separated space, away from the main fire, away from the children, but never truly far from the group. In many cultures, the birth space was considered sacred. Certain objects were brought in, certain people were excluded. The men in most documented hunter-gatherer societies stayed away. Ancient Egyptian medical papyri, some of the oldest medical texts ever found, describe elaborate birth bricks. The laboring woman would squat or kneel on these bricks, supported on both sides by attendants, while a third guided the baby from below. Squatting. That detail matters. For most of human history, women did not give birth lying on their backs. That position, flat, horizontal, feet in stirrups, is largely a modern invention, popularized in European medicine in the 17th century because it made things easier for the doctor, not easier for the mother. For the doctor, squatting, kneeling, or sitting upright uses gravity to help the baby descend. It opens the pelvis by up to 28% more than lying flat. It shortens labor, it reduces tearing. Ancient women knew this, not from textbooks, from thousands of years of women telling other women what worked. There's a word for what the birth attendant carried, we call it traditional medicine. Ancient people called it survival. Across cultures separated by thousands of miles and millennia, we find the same patterns. Plants to stimulate contractions, plants to slow bleeding, plants to ease pain, plants to help the placenta deliver cleanly. Ergot, a fungus that grows on rye, has been used to stimulate uterine contractions for at least 3,000 years in Europe. It contains compounds that modern pharmacology eventually turned into life-saving obstetric drugs. Blue cohosh, used by Native American women for centuries, contains chemicals that act directly on uterine muscle. Raspberry leaf, shepherd's purse, yarrow, plants used in ancient birth across dozens of cultures, have since been found to contain genuine pharmacological activity. These women were not guessing. They were applying thousands of years of careful, accumulated, tested knowledge. The laboratory was every birth that came before. The data was survival. They also had techniques we are only now rediscovering. Warm water immersion to ease contractions, specific massage of the lower back and abdomen, controlled breathing, not as a modern technique, but as an ancient one passed down through women who knew exactly what it could do to pain. The knowledge was real. What was missing was not understanding. What was missing was the ability to intervene when something went catastrophically wrong. Here's the number that puts everything in context. In pre-industrial societies with no access to modern obstetric care, maternal mortality during childbirth is estimated at roughly 1 in 100 births. 1 in 100. That sounds manageable until you remember that ancient women did not have 1 or 2 children. They had 5, 6, 7. Each birth was another 1 in 100 chance. Over a lifetime of 6 births, a woman faced roughly a 1 in 17 chance of dying in childbirth. Not over a lifetime, just from childbirth. And infant mortality was even higher. Archaeological analysis of ancient skeletal remains suggests that in some prehistoric populations, nearly 30 to 40% of children did not survive past the age of 5. Every woman who gave birth in the ancient world knew this was possible. Not as a statistic, as a memory. Her mother's friend, her sister, her neighbor. They knew what they were walking into, and they walked in anyway. The things that killed them were entirely predictable. Haemorrhage, uncontrolled bleeding that modern medicine can stop in minutes. Obstructed labor, a baby too large or poorly positioned to pass through the canal. Infection, which before antibiotics could turn a successful birth into a death sentence within days. Preeclampsia, dangerously high blood pressure with no way to detect it, no way to treat it. Ancient birth attendants could do extraordinary things, but they could not do everything, and the ones they could not save were not forgotten. They became the reason the knowledge had to be better, the reason it was passed down more carefully, the reason every daughter learned what her mother knew. Here is something fascinating. In every ancient civilization we have studied, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Rome, ancient China, the pre-Columbian Americas, childbirth was surrounded by ritual, prayers, incantations, sacred objects placed in the room, specific people who were allowed in and forbidden from entering, ceremonies performed after the birth, ceremonies performed before. For a long time, historians dismissed this as superstition, as fear dressed up as religion. But there is another way to read it. Ritual creates calm. When a laboring woman hears words she has heard since childhood, words that her mother heard, that her grandmother spoke, something happens in her nervous system. Cortisol levels drop. Adrenaline decreases. The uterus, which is extremely sensitive to fear and stress, contracts more efficiently. Modern obstetric research confirms that continuous emotional support during labor reduces the need for pain medication by up to 50%, reduces cesarean sections by 25%, reduces labor duration significantly. The ancient birth attendant who held a woman's hand and sang to her was not doing something separate from medicine. She was practicing medicine. She just did not have a word for it. And the sacred objects, the figurines, the amulets, the carved stones placed in the hands of laboring women across thousands of years of human history, they gave her something to grip, something to focus on, something that said, others have done this before you. Others survived. You are not the first. You will not be the last. The woman giving birth today in that hospital, the one with the monitors, the epidural, the call button, she is the product of an unbroken chain stretching back 300,000 years. Every woman in that chain had someone beside her, someone who knew which position to use, which plant to prepare, which words to say, when to push, when to wait, when to be afraid. The knowledge was never written down, not at first. It lived in hands and voices and memory, in the way one woman watched another and filed it away for the moment she would need it. And when modern medicine finally opened up the female body and began to understand what was happening inside, it discovered that the ancient women had been right. Right about position, right about plants, right about the healing power of being seen and heard and not being alone. We did not invent caring for women in labor. We just learned to explain why it worked. For 300,000 years, the most dangerous moment of human life was also the most communal one. It still is. The next time you walk past a maternity ward, the lights, the equipment, the quiet hum of machines, know that every single piece of it is built on a foundation of women helping women in the dark, with nothing but knowledge and each other. We traded the fire for fluorescent lights, but we never stopped needing someone in the room.